I don't know how to say it.
Last but not least, of course, we're going to install the grip, do the FCU settings, and finesse everything around here. But there are a few parts that I did forget to mention from the last video, and that one being the end cap here, straight from AirTac Customs. Nice and purple anodized end cap there, and aluminum material. Can't go wrong with that. It's very nice and durable. Love it. And of course, we're going to go ahead and use the ESG grip today. Of course, it's going to be the nice purple color. On top of that, we're going to use the Polestar Regulator. Now, I really don't have any concerns with the Micro Reg or the Wolverine version of the regulators that are used commonly in a lot of HPA grips. It's usually all the same. If you know how to work around it, know how to maintenance it, you're good to go. It'll take care of you, like I always say. So that's what we're gonna work on today. So let's get started. End cap here. And one thing I'd like to note, because of the gearbox, there's nothing that's gonna interrupt me from screwing this in. It's gonna be easy peasy to install. I kind of just have it upward like this. It's a little bit more easier for me to keep that in there. I'm gonna go ahead and screw that baby right in. All right, setting this aside for a quick minute, we do have the newer ESG grip. I like the packaging that Monk Customs has with their ESG grips, and a lot of the stuff that they did with the newer versions have actually been kind of catered to a lot of the players that have had issues with the previous ones, especially with the Gen 1 being so flimsy. Monk Customs kind of corrected that with the Gen 2. Honestly, these things are kind of cool because if you didn't want to run it as an HPA grip, then you can just run it as a regular pistol grip onto your regular build and just run a line through at the end just by taking this bottom part off, and it'll be easy and good to go. Cool. Setting that aside, we do have our materials here. I'm just going to go ahead and take a look at the HPA grip and go ahead. Oh, I had no idea it could do that. That's dope. So I kind of disassembled everything a little bit here. That's including the base and the door that we have here for the actual grip. Kind of taking out the rest of the parts. We do have some screws, which are going to be the most important. These are going to be for the base here. And then we do have another screw here. That's going to be for some sort of tightening. We'll figure it out as we go along. Easily enough, we're just going to follow the line or the hole here and just kind of fit both of these things in. And it should just be very simple, just like that. And what I like to do is just kind of thread them through grips, so that way I can see how much length I'm playing with here, and that way it can kind of give me an indication of where I need to cut. I'm gonna go ahead and screw all 4 of these in. Awesome. So now that we're actually getting everything done, it's gonna look like this and keep everything nice and secure. So now that we have it all installed, it's nice and secure right there. We're just gonna go ahead and kind of work with some cable management here a little bit. So we got a little bit of nice cable management going on. You can definitely just get away with this by using a 7-inch FCU cable, way easier, and you'll get the same amount of length that you will here, and you won't have to do this mess that I'm doing right now. But I'm pretty sure AirTac might just replace that for me once I send it back. Once everything kind of looks like this, you got a little bit of cable management, you got your line out here. I'm just gonna go ahead and actually install the regulator that we have on board, and all we gotta do is, honestly, we're just gonna remove this part of the adapter on the actual regulator itself. And all it is just we're gonna remove this part, and we're gonna remove this gauge, so that way we can fit it into the base of this HPA grip. And I'm gonna show you guys how to install everything properly, so that way you get a nice and really well seated air seal. All right, awesome. So once you get both the adapter and the gauge off of the regulator, then you can go ahead and kind of just fit everything into the base of the HPA grip here. Now, one thing to note, the gauge here is not always going to be at the side, so you're going to have to finesse it, unscrew it, and then just retighten it. That's all it is. For some reason, these ESG grips, they don't have it at the bottom here as it should, but instead it has it at the side. Now, I noticed this with a few other grips too. It makes it, I think, a little bit easier. I'm not really certain what the purpose of that is. A lot of grips I see kind of still have the hole at the bottom, so that way you can still fix everything and still have a view of the gauge at the same time as you're, fixing and tuning everything. So line that up. It might be a little bit of a tight fit at first, but you should be good to go. And you can see it's kind of nice and well placed in there. You have enough space for you to kind of adjust the settings there, and then you have enough space to put the gauge in there. But that's not what I'm going to do just yet. The next thing I'm actually going to do is install this adapter here for the line, but I'm actually going to do that once I connect the base to the rest of the grip here. So now that I got the base all nice and in there, I actually do want to keep that nice and secure with this bolt, and just kind of put that into the middle, screw it in, you should be good to go. Now that we see the screw is nice and secure, I'm gonna go ahead and actually start cutting the line a little bit. A good rule of thumb that I learned from a lot of players and a lot of old heads that were in the game for a little bit is that you want to take your line and you want to kind of measure it down along. Give yourself a little bit of extra space, and I usually like to cut it at least at the point where it meets the regulator halfway. That way, at least you get a little bit of extra space to kind of put your FCU and everything else of that sort in there if you're still running a tangible or a physical FCU, of course. So I'm just gonna go ahead, line that up real quick, get my pliers, go ahead and cut it right at the halfway mark right there. Boom. And I mean, this is a good way for me to measure. As long as everything looks good, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of deal with it in there. My personal rule is that I always install the FCU first before I install everything else after. You can see that the FCU cable is nice and snug in there. The next thing I'm gonna do is actually use this adapter, putting it on the line itself sometimes, or I kind of just install it from the back, but it's honestly up to you on how you do it. So what I'm gonna do is actually go ahead and screw it at the bottom here. The rule of thumb is righty tighty, lefty loosey. You're gonna do lefty tighty, righty loosey. Then I can just go ahead and take my hex screw, that's the one that's able to fit in there, and go ahead and just gently just twist it. Once that's screwed in, you're pretty much already almost there. All you have to do is just go ahead and install the gauge. But what I like to do too is I like to apply a little bit of Teflon tape so that way I can get a better air seal. You don't have to put too much, as long as it's able to get you that air seal, and it should be looking like that. And just screw it there at the bottom. I like to hand turn it because I don't want to strip it, of course. This scrub screw is definitely something that has been very phenomenal with keeping that regulator nice and tight within that grip. So keep in mind that's what it is for, keeping not just your plate in place, but also your regulator. So just grab your Allen wrench, just carefully screw that in there, don't strip it out. Good to go, just like that. Basically everything is finished and pretty much put together. We're gonna go ahead and test out and make sure there are no leaks in this build. Majority of the time when you do get a leak, it could either be between the actual line with the adapter that's not screwed in all the way, or the line that's not inserted all the way into the adapter, or even the gauge that might just need a little bit more tightening. So just double check everything. If you're still unsure, you could apply a little bit more Teflon tape and just go from there. Engine itself could be a leak in the solenoid or something else altogether, but we really don't expect it too much, especially since we have a new engine, unless we get something very faulty. Now that we have the LiPo connected, I hear the shots going off. Go ahead and get my trusty tank, screw that in, and all right, I don't hear any hissing at all. Everything sounds perfect. Out. Perfect. No leaks, no hissing, everything's perfect. Here I'm about to mess with the FCU settings. I do have the tank still installed into the regulator and the grip itself. So we are gonna use this as a point of reference just to make sure we're getting a really good amount of air pressure and a decent seal from the hop up and bucking that we have installed here. Overall, this is just gonna be a very basic tutorial. I'm not gonna go too crazy into the FCU settings, but just gonna get you by with what you need for this specific type of build. With the jacks, they do give a little bit of air pressure just on the factory settings of the FCU. And that's something that we're gonna go ahead and fix today. This is stuff that I learned from other players, and especially one of the better techs on YouTube, JJ Moore. I appreciate that brother so much. The first few shots, you're gonna get pretty much very low air pressure until you get a more consistent shot going, and then it starts giving you a little bit more value into your nozzle. So you'll see what I mean right now. See, took me about 2 to 3 shots for me to get at least a good amount of air pressure coming out of my nozzle. You heard the first 2 shots, not really having a lot of air pressure. Get your FCU, I hope you guys can see that. You're gonna go ahead and click it once and kind of navigate it with the left or right. This little button right here on the bottom right, it's gonna give you the options to go up, down, left, right. So we're gonna go left or right. And actually we're gonna go left real quick. There's a few settings. There's FCF1, and then there's FCFE. Now FE obviously for fusion engine, which we don't have, so we're gonna go to F1. So make sure you're on that one. Works best for single solenoid engines, just like the next thing we're gonna do is actually head over a little bit more. I'm gonna go right here, our DP, which is our basic pop it dwell. To fix the low pressure issue, we're gonna go ahead and crank this up a bit. Factory settings do have it at 50. We're gonna go ahead and just crank it up a little bit here. I'm gonna go at 75, just a little bit more cautious on my end, and then just kind of make sure everything looks right. 75, I'm gonna go ahead and click it, save the settings. and we're gonna listen to it right now. Almost there. We're gonna go ahead and just go back again. It's still giving me a little bit of air pressure, so I'm gonna keep going up just a bit more, maybe just another 10. Actually, I'm just gonna go up to 90. Let's make it at 15. It's already giving me the air pressure that I want, so I'm just gonna go ahead and mess with it just a little bit more and go down to 85. Sounds kind of good. I'm gonna go ahead and test it a little bit later, but you get the idea. Initially, this is what we want. If you're still unsure, keep playing around with it until you figure out what settings are best for you. But this is what we're gonna work with for right now. Best rule of thumb for a lot of FCU settings, I like to go in either increments of 5 or 10, depending on what you want on the field and depending on what your field allows. And we're gonna go ahead to the rate of fire, which is RF. It's at 18, that's the factory settings. But at most fields, what do we usually get at? Maybe 30, 35. I'm gonna go ahead and just put it at 30. Nah, screw it. You know what, we're gonna go ahead and put it at 35. Sounded pretty good on my end. I'm just gonna go ahead and keep it there. If you want, we can always go lower, but that's up to you. So again, these are just the very basic settings we're gonna go ahead and use based off this tutorial. I'm not gonna mess with it anymore. Everything else is just kind of really basic. This is why I like the Jack Polarstar build, because it's essentially plug and play. I do want to mention though, what I like about this grip is that it has a lot of space. You can see that I put the FCU organized on one side with the actual line in the middle. Like I said, give it enough slack so that way it's able to kind of give you enough room for your lipo. In the end, this is the completed build. I have the SpeedQB AirTac Biter C at the very top here. Everything works just as well as it expected to. You can definitely purchase this build on AirTacCustoms.com, and when it does release, just be sure to use my code TATER for 5% off. Majority of the things that you see on the website is good with that code. Thank you for watching, boys, and I'll see you on the next video.